Hey guys, Fox Protocol Mining here, coming at you with another new content video from the Fox Den. So in this video, I'm going to go over risers, kind of how they work, a few tips and tricks, and safety being the biggest thing. I happen to have quite a few different versions of risers here. So I just want to kind of go over these so you guys can see exactly kind of like what to buy, what not to buy, and like I said, a few tips. So anytime you buy a riser, you're going to notice when you get them in that they have these capacitors here on them. Generally a good sign that for manufacturing wise that you have a good riser is they have these colors on them on the one side only. As long as those are lined up, all the capacitors are facing the same way, that's usually a good sign that you have a structurally sound riser. If you ever order one of these and you get it in and one of these capacitors is flipped like 180 degrees from the other capacitors, that might be a sign that you have a bad riser. That's pretty rare, but I just wanted to bring that up because I have ordered a few lots of these off of eBay in the past. And I got a few duds, and pretty much all the duds, the capacitors were actually damaged in some way, or they'd been bent, or they just weren't facing the correct direction. So that's the first thing I want to go over, just so you can kind of tell just by looking at them if they're good. That's not a tell-all. I mean, more can go wrong with a riser than just that. But that's just the first thing I usually do before I plug these in is I check that. Now if you look at this is actually a SATA only riser. So this would actually come with a connector like this generally in the packaging, and with a lot of risers you'll get this connector. And my biggest recommendation for you if you get this connector is to throw it away, because SATA is not rated for the correct wattage. So what this does is this mimics the port on your motherboard. So your graphics card is actually going to attempt to draw 75 watts of electricity through this because it's a means of powering the card. Now a SATA cannot handle a true 75 watt pole depending on the gauge of wire. It's not a stand-all, but the general rule of thumb is that SATA is only good for about 50 watts. So there's that 25 watt difference there that can cause this plug to actually burn out and it can light on fire. So these are generally depicted as a fire hazard. Unless you're using like a really old card, I wouldn't even bother trying to use these. And like most miners, when I first started, I'm a bit of a hypocrite. I did use these. I never had any issues, but that's just luck of the draw. I got very lucky that I didn't have any issues because I was completely ignorant of the fact that this was not the correct cable. So if you get these, my advice to you is to get rid of them and replace them with a 6-pin connection. So that's it for this particular riser. I do not recommend this riser. This is an example of what not to buy. Do not buy SATA only risers. Get rid of that. Now again, always check when you get these in that rule of thumb that all your capacitors are facing the same direction. They have that same color code there. This one you're going to notice it's only got one power connection on it. It's Molex. Anytime you see a 4-pin connector like this, it is referred to as Molex. Now Molex connections are still not what you want. I think a good Molex is rated to about 60 some watts, so it's a little bit better than your SATA connectors. But if your card is really power hungry, it's going to want that 75 watts from this PCIe riser. And again, the Molex just isn't enough juice to get that done. So generally my recommendation is that SATA is the worst. Don't ever use it. Molex, I really don't want to say that it's acceptable, but if it's all you have and you're using an older style card, then you can probably get away with it. But if you're using like an NVIDIA 2000 series or RX 5600s or 5700s or even the new 3000 series NVIDIAs, I wouldn't trust a riser that's powered by Molex, just because those cards are going to pull a lot of wattage, and you're going to want to make sure to avoid issues that you're using the correct material. So this one is an example of what not to buy for that. This is actually the first set of risers that I ordered. You'll notice right away on these that they have 4 capacitors instead of 3. So that's usually a good sign. The more capacitors you have on these, that's generally a sign of they can handle more power. You'll notice this is a 6-pin only connection. So again, when we get back to this cable plugs into a 6-pin. This is a 6-pin cable. So you'd think that you could just plug that in right there, but that's still a fire hazard because you still have a SATA connection present. So if you have these, just trust me, throw them away. But this is pretty much the standard as you get the 6-pin connection like this. It's, you know, it's what I would ideally shop for when you're shopping risers, is find something with a 6-pin. And this is like a forward mount, just one style. Now you'll encounter things like these too. Again, we've got the 4 capacitors. You can see it does have a SATA power connection. It also has a Molex power connection and a 6-pin power connection. Now this is a side saddle 6-pin. I don't really care for the side saddle connection like this. That's what I call it. That's not what it's actually called. But just for the simple fact that, you know, your card's going to mount vertically into this, so you're going to be running a power connection along the side of the card. And to me, that's just not ideal, especially if you're in a server case, or well, if you're in a server case, you're not going to need this. But if you're running an open air rig, you're going to have cables coming down in between your cards, and it just becomes kind of a hassle for arranging your cards. So I wouldn't recommend this particular design, but this does have a 6-pin option. So, you know, if you can buy these over the other two, the SATA and the Molex, I would do that. And this is, I think, my most modern version of a riser. I get pretty much all my stuff off of eBay, so I don't get them from any particular company as of yet. I haven't started doing that. But again, we've got the 4 capacitors showing that it is rated. It can handle a lot more. This has the front end 6-pin connection. It has a Molex, and it also has a side saddle 6-pin connector. So this one's got the right idea, and I really like the fact that, you know, just like this, I've got my forward 6-pin. To me, it just really helps with your cable management if you can keep the cables away from where your GPUs are going to be mounted, because I've actually got a GPU here where I can kind of show you what I'm talking about here. So yeah, your GPU is going to mount vertically into this. So if I spin this around and plug it in here so you can see. Oops. So that's where the 6-pin connector actually falls, is literally right on the side of the card in this little gap here. And you know, if you've built the rig, or maybe you haven't yet, but your other card's probably only going to be 2 to 3 inches of clearance here. So you're actually going to have a cable here, and that cable, if you're not careful, it can actually get in the fans of the GPU that is behind it. So realistically, it's just, I don't like putting them there. Some people do. You know, it's not, everybody does it differently. I just prefer to have everything under the card just like that. So your USB PCIe connector is coming out here. It's going straight to the board, and then your 6-pin connector here. It's hard to see because it's all black, but that is right there, and it's going to come out that same way. You can kind of tie those cables together, and it just looks so much cleaner on your rig. So guys, I mean, that's pretty much it when it comes down to safety, is to make sure you understand the basic ratings. A 6-pin cable is going to handle 75 watts. I mean, that's what it's built for. That's what it's designed for. If you're coming down off of that to a Molex, you're risking it a little bit because you're at a 60-watt capacity, give or take. And then the SATA just cannot possibly handle the load. You're at 50 watts. If for any reason it were to draw the 75 watts specifically through the riser at any point in operation, you are well exceeding what the cable's rated for, and you're risking, you know, melting the connection ruining the cable, and worst case scenario, having a fire. So I don't know, guys. I just wanted to cover all that for you so you guys could actually see it. You could see some of the different designs. I will link you guys some risers that are more like this, or at least they have these 6-pin connections on them, so you don't have to worry about purchasing the wrong risers. I'm going to link those down below for you. That way you guys have a direct link to the correct products, the ones that I'm going to recommend. Please, guys, if you have any questions, hit me up in the comments. Like I said, I'm not 100% sure with exactly what, they've got the versions on them, like just to kind of overcap a little bit, but I haven't really paid too much attention to the different versions. I just go off of what I've ordered off of eBay. Pretty much everything I've ordered has been used, so I haven't particularly ordered a specific style of riser yet, but as I'm getting larger and larger, I'm really starting to edge into something like this, just because these are pretty common to find, and common is good because common tends to be cheaper, whereas if you get an off-ball design, you may end up paying a little bit more than you want to. But like I said, check the description, guys, and I'll have something down there for you. And as always, guys, I'm still new to this. I've been mining for a few years, but I'm still new to the YouTube scene. So if you guys could please give me some critiques down below, some criticism, whatever works. I know this camera setup isn't ideal, but it's what I have to work with for the moment. I'm working on it, guys. I promise I will get better camera setups for you so that we can see these a little bit better. But this is Fox Protocol Mining, guys, in the Fox Den, signing off.